Welcome to the Bothell Buzz, where you hear about timely topics. Today we're going to learn more about the Multiway Boulevard,
So a Multiway Boulevard is an interesting type of roadway. Essentially it has a 5-lane arterial in the middle, and it has planter strips, wide planter strips of trees on the outside, which kind of serve to delineate it from the pedestrian corridor or the pedestrian realm, which consists of access lane as well as parking as well as wide sidewalks. And one of the reasons we do this is a traditional 1950s type American arterial typically had a 5-lane arterial and a 5-foot sidewalk right behind it, kind of like we used to have here. And that's not very pedestrian friendly. So one of the goals when we started our downtown revitalization back in 2006 was to make sure the east and west side of our downtown was not bisected by an arterial and pedestrians wouldn't want to cross it or walk up and down it. And a Multiway Boulevard was a good way to do this. It helped us ensure that we'd have a whole downtown core that was walkable. So Multiway Boulevards are unique in the sense that there are not very many in the United States. You see a lot of them in Europe. Barcelona has one. You see them on the East Coast a little bit more. Back a few decades ago, they were built in Washington, D.C. I think Brooklyn has one. And recently, San Francisco built a couple of them. Millbrae, just south of the Bay Area, and San Francisco has Octavia Boulevard. There are not very many in the state of Washington. Just before this one was built, there was one installed on Joint Base Lewis McChord, and it is, again, a Multiway Boulevard. It is going to take some people a little bit of time to learn how to drive it, kind of like when roundabouts came about. We have created a video that actually instructs people how to drive it, similar to when roundabouts came about as well. So one of the main reasons we wanted a Multiway Boulevard, and you can see when you drive it that there are different textures on some of the lanes, and that the lanes are a little bit narrower perhaps, is that we wanted people to realize that they're coming to a downtown urban area. And once we have all the hotels coming in, we have McMinimans now, there's going to be a lot of activity on the streets. There's going to be a lot more pedestrians, probably bikers, and more cars as well. And we want people to slow down. So we want them to come and see the boulevard, go wow, and then kind of slow down. So they just need to be aware that there's more activity going on as they pass through these few blocks of the downtown core. For our Multiway Boulevard, I think there are a few benefits that kind of stand out for us. One of the first ones I talked about before was that it kind of creates a scene. So we've tried to create a retail core with our land use. So we have shops with doors and windows that people will walk up and down the corridor. We have very short blocks. So we have a lot of opportunities for people to cross across the street to get from the housing on the new west side as well as the library to the historic east side. The other thing that people don't quite realize is it's very flexible. And what I mean by that is every block has an access lane and sidewalk, but every block can look a little different if the city wanted it to. And in our case, we had more room on the southern 2 blocks, and we have 2 rows of parallel parking. On the northern blocks, we wanted to save the Anderson building, and we didn't have much land. So you'll see single lanes of parking, and it looks a little bit different. There's going to be a hotel in the future in the City Hall block, and they're going to have their main entrance right off the access lane, so it'll look a little different. And McMinimans, we work with McMinimans, and theirs looks a little bit different as well to service their needs. So it's a very flexible design, and it allows multi-uses of it. So it's a great solution for downtown Bothell. So in terms of benefits for the actual use of the Multiway, one of the things it does is it provides actual parking adjacent to or in front of the retail businesses that we anticipate being here. We never used to have that. They used to have parking lots, and it created a very car-oriented environment. In this particular case, when you're walking up and down the corridor, you'll be 20, 25, 30 feet away from the actual cars. The other thing it does is it tries to slow cars down so that pedestrians feel more comfortable walking around the downtown. And it just looks great. It is very wide. It is very in scale with the development going up. So we think it's going to fit in really nicely. So in terms of actually using the Multiway Boulevard, as I mentioned before, you'll probably want to go online on the Bothell website and look for our video. But a couple tips, probably the biggest one is, again, a reminder that you're entering a realm that's going to be very busy. There'll be a lot of pedestrians, there'll be bikers, there'll be more cars, there'll be people parking. So the biggest thing we can tell people is to slow down and be aware of everything going on around you. In terms of driving it, the typical intersection is pretty normal. There's a signal there. The only unique thing that we've added is the side access lanes, and that's where the parking occurs. And those are stop controlled. So when you leave the access lane, you have to stop first. And that's probably the trickiest part. When you stop, make sure you look for pedestrians because the crosswalk's right in front of you. And you're only going to be allowed to make a right turn or go straight through to the next block's access lane at this time. But make sure you look around you because cars might be taking a right and you have the last priority. So you have to be very careful when you leave the access lane. Think of it as leaving a private driveway. You'd have to look all around you, and it's very similar to that. Bikers, you will be using the access lanes as well. There's markings on the ground for that. Drive down the center of the aisle, away from the car doors. Again, when you cross the intersections, you have last priority, just like a car, so make sure it's clear, and then you can go across to the next access lane. So for more information about the Multiway Boulevard, go to the City of Bothell website.
Thanks for joining us on the Bothell Buzz. See you next time.